Welcome, everyone. Thank you so much for joining this Business Unusual interview. Again, my name is Jessa Lux. I'm the host of this interview series. I so appreciate you sticking with us through these technical difficulties. I'm also for a digital design agency called Clique Studios, and Clique has offices in Denver, which is where I am. We also have offices in Chicago and in Austin. And as community manager, I'm tasked with adding value to those communities by facilitating education and connection. And of course, this interview series is part of that. And it also serves one of Clique's 3 core values, which is to be a student and a teacher. And today I'm here being a student with you, and our teacher is Simone Worsdale. And Simone is the Director of Digital Strategy at the Harvard Kennedy School. And I feel so privileged to be able to talk to you today, Simone. Thank you for joining us.
Awesome. Thanks so much for having me.
Yes, of course. And when we were talking about this interview, one thing that Simone said was that examples really resonate with people. And this interview series is here to help you get better outcomes and make better decisions at work. And I think that she's exactly right about examples. So let's start there. And Simone, will you just tell us about an example of something you and your team have done recently that has been successful?
Yeah, absolutely. So, thinking about how we define success, there are 2 things that come to mind for me. So the first is the purpose of our office is elevating ideas. And the reason we want to elevate ideas is because we want to position the Harvard Kennedy School as a hub for deep and reliable insights on important issues. And we want to lift up best-in-class research to attract the most talented faculty, staff, and students. And of course, advance critical conversations around public policy and leadership. And then also, we want to always make sure that we're tying things back to the social thing, especially on social media. So, that the social thing is all about finding angles to make content more shareable online. So examples of that are topics of general interest, topics of emerging importance, breaking news. But, we don't want to do that too much because, of course, being a place of education, of higher education, we want to make sure to also take the long view as well. But when it comes to our, social content, of course, we want to try to anchor it in what's going on in the world today. So as we were leading up to the election, we were looking at our faculty, our experts, and seeing what they had to offer. And so one of our faculty members, Alex Kesar, actually is an expert in the Electoral College. And I think that everything that we did with him ended up being incredibly successful. And it was also a really multifaceted campaign. So pretty much we had a video that a lot of the content was anchored in. So that video was produced by our amazing video producer, and it was called "This Is Why We Still Have the Electoral College." That ended up, as of yesterday, had 57,000 views on YouTube, which is one of our most successful videos. And we also did a podcast with Alex Kesar. And then we also did a Q&A with him. And then it was also featured in Harvard Gazette. And that video and that content was also picked up by some media sources. So this, I think, is an example for me of really every single part of our team being used, and also, a multifaceted approach to content. So I know we lost Jessa, but I'll just keep chatting with you guys about this. So some of the social things that we anchored this content in was, I can share some of that. So it comes down to, like I said, this is why we still have the Electoral College. And and when we took some of the takeaways from his content and kind of pulled it out into our social media. So one of the tweets that we shared was HKS's Alex Kesar says more than a century of attempts to replace the Electoral College have been thwarted by Southern and Republican politicians looking to diminish the voting power of non-whites. So there was a lot of really interesting, meaty information there. So Jessa, I know that we lost you for a little bit there, so I just kind of kept going for everyone.
You are incredible. I apologize so much for these technical difficulties. You can probably tell I'm tuning in from my cell phone right now. But I had a little bit of background on what that project with Alex Kesar was about. So my follow-up question would be, first of all, what resources do you have to put into something that's kind of a larger project that's going to hit a lot of different channels like that?
Yeah, definitely. So our team is about 13 people, and we are the Office of Communications in the Kennedy School. And we are broken up into a couple different teams. So we have our editorial team, our design team, digital, which is my team, and also media relations. And so kind of my view is that, and I'm sure others would agree, is that our editorial and media relations team is really focused on production. And then my team is focused on distribution, and then design, is involved in every single aspect of everything we do. So they are just involved across the board.
Yes,
So
of
that's how
course.
our team is oriented. Yeah.
And is that entire team involved in like ideating around a concept like this? Or does that come from you and then get delegated out to the team? Can you just give us a sense of how collaborative it is?
Yeah, our team is super collaborative. Ideas can come from anyone. We have weekly meetings. We have our editorial meetings, which I think is where a lot of the ideas come out of. And then we have our content strategy meetings as well. And so, yeah, an idea can come from anywhere. And then it's kind of delegated out, or kind of different people say, it's not, actually, I'd say it's almost like reverse delegated. People kind of volunteer for it, or it's something that somebody's interested in. And in this particular example, the video was produced by our video producer. The podcast was produced by somebody on our editorial team who's our podcast producer. And then another person on the editorial team did the Q&A. And then our digital communications coordinator kind of led all of the distribution.
Amazing. And I love that you said reverse delegated, because when people are interested or opting into something, I mean, that's better work right there. So that's really cool to learn a little bit more about the process, but how people do specialize, of course, to get to the various channels. So I apologize if I'm covering anything that you covered when I wasn't with you. But can you tell us what makes this project something that comes to mind as a success? Is there a KPI that you were trying to hit, or how do you kind of define success for this project?
Yeah, so definitely the reason that this came to mind for me as a success was a couple reasons. So definitely first and foremost for me, looking at what our team measures, was the reach. So like I said, it reached over 57,000, it got over 57,000 views on YouTube. And week after week, sharing this content on social would be our top performing post on social. So for us, we don't have like particular like KPI numbers, like, okay, we want to hit like 5,000 views for this post or 10,000 views for this video. It's more organic in like comparing it to our averages. So like we are in our analytics, we are looking at how all of our content is performing every single day, every single week. And so it's kind of comparing it to that baseline to see what stands out. And when I think back on the past couple months, I know every week our digital communications coordinator was sharing with us, all right, again, this electoral college piece is doing well. And it was also one of the Q&A was also always in like our top 5 or top 10 pieces, web stories each week. And so the main driver of that was SEO. So that also, whenever we have a piece that really does well on SEO, that's also what sticks out to me as success, because obviously then that means that we are answering people's questions and we're giving people information that they care about. And so once we saw that we were getting a lot of traffic from SEO, I did some digging with Google Search Console, and then went into incognito, used the search terms, see how we were showing up. And it was really exciting to see that when you search for the history of the Electoral College, our Q&A is on page 1 results, and our video was the top video for when you filter on Google by video. And what I was really proud of was that we were among time.com, historychannel.com, and like the players that our content was appearing besides was, you know, something that I was really proud of.
You should be really proud of that. I would be floored for any one of those things to happen, whether it's 57,000 views or being on the first page. That's incredible. And do you lean more towards timely topics like this one? So obviously the Electoral College is something that was top of mind for a lot of people around the time of the election. Do you find that timely topics work better and you lean more toward that? Or is it a good split between that and evergreen topics? How do you think about that?
You know, we definitely we do split our time between that, and we are cognizant of it, because we never want to go, you know, as a place of higher education, we never want to go so far extreme in like only talking about, you know, what is going on right now, because like there's CNN, there's other sources, you know, there's think tanks, there's other people that can do that. And so we do want to, you know, try to make sure to take the long view. And then, you know, when you mentioned about, you know, that the Electoral College was, you know, that was top of mind for people around the election. When you said that, it reminded me that when I was taking a look at the analytics, the SEO analytics, it was the day after the election was like this huge peak, and everybody was Googling, why do we have the Electoral College? What's going on? And so, you know, really exciting that we were able to share that content. And then also, I actually didn't mention early on that also part of this being, you know, this faculty member's expertise, he wrote a book on it, which also, you know, helped with everything with the video, and you know, was one of the reasons that we focused on this as well.
Absolutely. That actually it's really interesting. It surprises me that the spike was the day after and not like the day before. People are kind of retroactively thinking about how this all works. That's really interesting. I want to shift gears a little bit and talk about your content distribution, because it sounds like that was kind of a key to success in this case. Can you tell us about maybe just give an overview of the channels that you hit with this project, and whether that's typical for a project or if it applies more just because this was a larger undertaking, and how you think about all of that?
Yeah, so, you know, something that I always like am talking about, and, you know, talking about with our team, is that I think a lot of people kind of have this bias of like, I shared it once, so like my audience has seen it, or like, you know, we can't share it again. And like, that's something that we're constantly, you know, working against or working towards. We're like, okay, no, we're going to share this over and over and over again. How many different ways can we say it? How many different ways, you know, what is the different types of content that we can use? So for us, we focus on Facebook, Twitter, Instagram, LinkedIn, and YouTube. So those are our main channels. And actually, you know, in terms of distribution, something interesting that when I came on board a little over 2 years ago, we were not really doing a lot with our LinkedIn page. And that had actually, I've worked in higher ed for most of the past 10 years, or maybe for 10 years now. and LinkedIn was a huge channel for us. And so, especially, you know, with alumni, with faculty and staff, you know, and so that was something that we did, that we started using LinkedIn more, and we started seeing a lot of success with that. So especially kind of those more, we have a series called Faculty Focus, where we kind of like tell the story, like a more, you know, we try to add a little bit more of a personal element, and like that type of content about our people does so well on LinkedIn, and you know, gets a lot of attention there. And so, yep, you know, seeing how we can reposition things, sharing it across multiple channels, keep sharing it over and over again. You know, obviously Twitter the most, like the fact that the feed, you know, just you can say we've even sometimes tweeted out the same tweet one week and then the next week. Of course, it's different with every channel. So with Facebook, like we wouldn't post the exact same thing like the next week. We would kind of change the angle. And then obviously with Instagram, we're not going to, you know, share the same thing, you know, share the same photo 2 weeks later. What's interesting too, thinking about like Instagram, is that, you know, where we've gotten with distribution now is that it's not even like, oh, this is good for Instagram. It's like, is this good for the feed? Is this good for stories? Is this good for IGTV? We're not even touching Reels or TikTok. Like, we're not dealing with that right now. You know, we have an older audience, so we don't feel the need to have to do that, since we're not focused on, you know, undergrads, since we're a graduate school. Yeah, that's my spiel on that.
I'm glad that you said that, because I totally fall into the trap of thinking about this great content and producing the content and editing the content, but distributing it is somewhere that I need to push myself to get better. So I'm interested in learning more about this. What do you have any rules of thumb for like the cadence of your posts? It sounds like it's channel specific, and the longevity. So does this project with Alex Kaser get pushed out over like heavy, really hitting people every day in every channel for a week or a month, or more slowly over 6 months?
Yeah, great question. So with something like this, pretty much as soon as a piece of content was ready, we were sharing it on across our channels, and then we were sharing, you know, resharing it every week. So that's definitely how we look at it that way. But then, you know, when it comes to, you know, resharing our older content, we do that all the time. So I think a really good example of that is that we had a story from our magazine that we wrote a year ago on the Prime Minister of New England. And so, I'm sorry, the Prime Minister of New Zealand. And so then, you know, she was in the news recently, and there was a lot going on with her. So this was a year-old story that we reshared. And then because we reshared it, because it was, you know, tied to current events, it performed really well, and we got a second or third life out of that story.
That makes a lot of sense. And being diligent about having that archive and referencing that archive and bringing things back up is just kind of a skill that you have to train yourself to do.
Yes, definitely.
So
Oh, yes.
that kind of relates to something that came to mind, which is, how do I know when I'm done? Like when I've exhausted a piece of content. And it sounds like there are cases where it will become relevant. Is there any guidance you can give about just in the first wave of a piece of content, when do you feel like you're done?
Pretty much, if we share it 2 or 3 times, and by the second and third time, it's just kind of like not getting the engagement. Like if it's below average for engagement or reach for us, then we're just kind of like, okay, bye, on to the next one. So it really depends. And I know I've heard from Natalie, who's our digital communications coordinator. I know, you know, she's shared with me before, like, I'm sharing this every week, and like every week it's killing it, and like people are commenting and it's getting great reach. So like, we're just going to keep sharing it until people don't care about it anymore. So, so we definitely, it's 100% tied to performance and analytics.
I love that. Share it until people don't care about it. Okay, good. I feel like I'm better equipped. I could ask you 100 more questions. This conversation could go on just so that I could feed my own curiosity about it. But I did promise some Q&A at the end. So I'm going to open up our Q&A. And if you have questions, please feel free to use that Q&A feature right now. We have 8 minutes left, so Simone will address as many of these as she can. I'm going to start with a question from Michael. He asks, when crowdsourcing content from faculty in a timely way, how do you identify people in a programmatic way?
Yeah, so how that definitely is tied to our structure at the Kennedy School. So the Kennedy School is a very distributed school. So we are made up of 11 research centers. And so a lot of our faculty are tied to our research centers. So kind of building on that, we have in our office what we call a beat system. So basically each person from our faculty team has several like assignments, like, you know, topics. It's basically research centers and topics that they are responsible for cultivating that relationship and getting updates from them. So that's kind of what we use to stay updated. We're working with our research centers, and a lot of our research centers have that kind of closer tie to our faculty. And so we do get a lot of information fed from them that way. Definitely because we are a highly distributed organization. It is difficult, and it can be difficult to find out about the latest research and about the books that our experts are coming out with. But what we try to do is just show our value to them, and what's in it for them to let us know when they have new things coming out. And so certainly, like with our social media and with our stories, since we have our weekly analytics of how everything is performing, Monday of the last week, we'll go through and we'll contact those faculty and say, we shared this on Facebook, it was our top performing post, and kind of giving them that, feel good feeling about how, about the reach of their research.
That's a great tip, framing it as what's in it for them. I also love the challenge that you have because you work at Harvard. There's so much incredible content being created by people in your network. So what a great problem to have, really.
Yes.
So the next question, a number more have come in, is from Carlene. She says, can you share the difference between editorial meetings and content strategy meetings?
Definitely. So we have done a lot. If any of my colleagues see this, they may laugh, because we have done a lot of work and a lot of thinking about our meeting structures and the structure, of all of our different meetings. And, definitely with the pandemic and everybody working from home, we, definitely want to be respectful of everybody's time and make sure that, we're not having unnecessary meetings. So basically the difference between those two meetings is that the editorial meetings it's our editorial team and our video producer, pretty much like all of the content producers on our team. So very much on the production side. And, they are talking about their ideas. They are talking about what's in the works, just kind of digging into the content with each other. And then our content strategy meetings it's our full team. So it's everybody in the office. We all give our updates. We talk about analytics, and we also talk about, what is coming up, like what events are coming up, what do we need to have our eye on, what do we need to make sure we're focusing on, pretty much our priorities for the next week. And so, and also like our homepage, and like making sure, that's where we kind of touch on a little bit more, like where content is going. And then also, with content strategy, it's about also the support, that the design and digital team need to give to the editorial team. So making sure that we have the art, making sure that, we are ready to publish and distribute the content.
Great. I saw a question in here too. I know there are a number of people here who are also in the education industry, and this kind of speaks to that. The question is, what do you find prospective students care most about when evaluating where they want to go to school?
Ooh, so that's a tough one. So I am definitely not an expert in admissions. So let me think, what do you find prospective students care most about? I'll say, I think it's safe to say, based on how we've structured communications at the Kennedy School, I feel like that indicates to me that our belief is that what matters to students is what faculty are there, what research they're doing, and also what they're going to learn. So we have, we have these policy topic pages, which are kind of where we talk about our different areas of expertise, and on all or different areas that our faculty cover. And on every one of those pages, we have related courses. So we definitely try to bring in related courses also into everything that we do with our content. So that's my answer for that.
That's a really smart approach. I didn't know you guys do that, but thinking about how, whether you're in education or not, how you can tie that content into an offering is really cool. So we only have a couple more minutes left. I'll ask one more question here. It's from Ted. It's, have there been any new learnings or insights this year that you feel will be part of your 2021 approach?
Ooh, what a fun question. Let's see. You know, something, I feel like we have been on a really good path with SEO. And I feel like, you know, I mean, that's certainly not headline news, but I think that SEO will continue to be incredibly important to our strategy. And that just means, you know, continuing to build the culture of, when we're developing our content, making sure that we have an eye to our headlines and to our introductions, and of course to kind of these keywords or questions that we can be answering. So I feel like we've seen, you know, in my time in this role, I think that year over year, we've seen a lot more drive to our content from SEO. And, you know, we have weeks upon weeks where all of our top stories are all from SEO. And so that's also something that we're thinking about. You know, we're, you know, thinking about some strategy for our website, and, you know, trying to make some changes there. And we're really, you know, positioning it around just trying to get our content in front of the right audience, which again, no headline there, but you know, just continuing to put a focus on those things.
I mean, you say no headline, and I get it because you take on really complicated projects in your role. But for me, I said that I'm a student here along with everybody. I'm feeling like taking on these tasks is feeling a little more approachable after talking to you and getting this guidance. So I really appreciate that. And the SEO comment too, and the fact that you guys are doing great in that arena and want to continue improving in that arena, I just think just speaks to the quality of your content too. SEO, a huge part of it, of course, is creating really quality content. So that's cool. I'm excited to continue following your work, and I hope to continue learning from you. Like I said, I could talk to you all day. Thank you for rolling with my highest level of technical difficulties I could have imagined. And thank you to everyone for joining us today. Simone, I appreciate you. We'll be in touch. Everyone else, have a great rest of the week, and I hope to have you join another interview in the future.
Awesome. Thank you so much for having me.
Of course. Have a good day.